In a high-rise office overlooking the city skyline, a wealthy executive leaned back in his leather chair, his voice dripping with arrogance. A maid, dressed in her crisp uniform, stood silently by the door, clutching a tray she had just cleared. Suddenly, with a mocking grin, the millionaire held up a foreign document and sneered, "Translate this, and my salary is yours." Laughter filled the room from his colleagues, their eyes fixed on the young black maid, expecting her to falter. But what happened next left the entire boardroom frozen, and the arrogant man's smirk vanished. This was not just about a document. It was about dignity, hidden strength, and the explosive moment when power and prejudice collided in front of everyone. The city towered with glass and steel, where only the wealthiest held sway. Among them was Richard Hammond, a powerful millionaire whose arrogance was as vast as his fortune. He believed money was not just power, but a weapon to remind others of their place. And no one felt this more than the staff in his office, secretaries, assistants, and especially the cleaning crew. Among them was Amara Johnson, a young black woman in her late 20s. Every morning she dressed in her plain Navy Maid uniform and took the long subway ride into the heart of the city. For her, this job was survival, a way to pay her mother's medical bills and keep food on the table. She was quiet, diligent, and invisible in the eyes of those she served. But what no one knew was that Amara was not ordinary. Behind her silence was a mind sharpened by years of study, a gift for languages, and a past filled with sacrifices. Before her life had taken this turn, she had been a brilliant university student studying international relations, fluent in French, Spanish, Arabic, and Mandarin. But tragedy had struck. Her father's sudden death, her mother's illness, and the crushing financial burden forced her to abandon her degree and take on any job she could find. To Richard Hammond, she was just the maid. To him, she was a reminder of the hierarchy he adored, the powerful on top, the powerless serving them. He often mocked her presence during meetings, making jokes about her uniform or pretending she was invisible. But Amara never responded. She endured quietly, knowing her family depended on her. Yet inside her a storm brewed. Every degrading laugh, every dismissive gesture etched itself deeper into her resolve. One ordinary afternoon, that storm would finally break. Richard, in front of his wealthy associates, would push his cruelty too far. And in that moment, Amara's hidden brilliance would erupt, not with anger, but with precision, and his entire empire of arrogance would crumble under the weight of his own words. It began during a high-stakes meeting in Hammond's towering glass-walled boardroom. Sunlight streamed across the polished table, where executives in tailored suits shuffled contracts worth millions. Amara had been called in to clear the empty coffee cups, moving silently from chair to chair. Richard spotted her and smirked. For him, humiliating her was sport. That afternoon, he found his opportunity. An international contract had arrived, written entirely in Mandarin. His team was scrambling, waiting on their translator to join. Richard, impatient and looking for entertainment, waved the paper in the air. "Ladies and gentlemen," he chuckled, "watch this." He turned towards Amara, who was stacking glasses at the side. "Hey, maid, translate this, and my salary is yours." His voice boomed with mockery, and laughter rippled through the room. Everyone expected her to shrink, to shake her head, to remind them she was just staff. But Amara froze. Her heart pounded. The humiliation was sharp, but so was the opportunity. Slowly, she set the glasses down, walked forward, and took the paper from his hand. The room went silent, the laughter fading into uneasy chuckles. Her eyes scanned the page. The words flowed seamlessly in her mind, each line unlocking like a puzzle she had solved 1,000 times before. Then, with a steady voice, she began to translate. Line by line, she read out loud in perfect English, her tone calm, professional, and commanding. Not a single stumble, not a single hesitation. Her voice cut through the air, filling the boardroom with something none of them had expected: authority. The executives leaned in, shocked.
They whispered among themselves, realizing she wasn't improvising. She was accurate. She was flawless. Richard's smirk faltered. His face tightened, first in disbelief, then in anger. This was not supposed to happen. This was his stage, his power play, yet here she was, dismantling his arrogance with every word she spoke. By the time Amara finished, the boardroom was dead silent. Papers rustled, throats cleared nervously. The millionaire who had set the trap now sat exposed, his maid outshining him in front of everyone. And then came the cruelest blow to his pride. One of the executives leaned forward and asked, "How many languages do you speak?" Amara met his eyes. "I speak 5 fluently. I studied international relations before life circumstances forced me to pause my education." Gasps filled the room. Richard looked like he had been stripped bare. But the storm was not over, because what Amara revealed next would not just embarrass him, it would unravel his empire. Richard tried to recover, laughing awkwardly, muttering that it was just a joke. But his voice trembled. For the first time, his confidence cracked. Then one of the executives slid the contract back towards Amara and said, "Can you tell us what this says about the shipping terms?" She nodded and pointed out a crucial clause buried in the document, one that none of the executives had noticed. The terms gave their company a massive disadvantage, essentially handing control to their international partner. If signed as it was, the company stood to lose millions. Murmurs spread across the room. Executives leaned in, whispering, checking the document. Amara explained it clearly, her knowledge precise, her delivery steady. Richard's face turned crimson. The trap he set for humiliation had backfired in the most devastating way. Not only had she translated flawlessly, but she had just saved his company from a catastrophic deal. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Everyone stared at him, the arrogant millionaire who mocked a maid, only to be rescued by her brilliance. In that moment, the hierarchy collapsed, the power dynamic flipped, and Richard, once the predator, became the laughingstock. His jaw clenched, but no words came. The boardroom, once his domain, no longer belonged to him. Amara didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply placed the document back on the table, bowed her head slightly, and stepped aside, her dignity intact, her worth undeniable. After that day, nothing was the same. Word of the incident spread through the company like wildfire. Executives spoke in hushed tones about the maid who outshone her millionaire boss. Employees whispered about the humiliation Richard had endured. And for once, it wasn't Amara who was invisible, it was him. The company's HR department, under pressure from the board, called Amara in. They offered her a position as a translator and cultural liaison, with a salary that could cover her mother's treatment and secure her future. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of survival lift from her shoulders. Richard, meanwhile, was forced to face consequences. The board lost faith in his leadership, citing recklessness and arrogance. His downfall began the moment he underestimated someone he thought beneath him. Amara's story became more than an office scandal. It became a reminder whispered in corridors and boardrooms. Never mistake silence for weakness, nor uniform for ignorance. But the true impact went beyond the company. For everyone who heard the story, it carried a deeper lesson about dignity, prejudice, and power. The image of a millionaire mocking a maid, only to be humbled by her brilliance, lingered like a scar. It forced people to ask themselves, how often do we judge someone by their appearance? How many talents remain unseen because society cages people in stereotypes? Amara continued her journey, not as a maid, but as a professional, reclaiming the future stolen from her by hardship and prejudice. Her strength lay not just in her knowledge, but in her choice to rise with grace when others sought to drag her down. And Richard, he became a cautionary tale, a symbol of arrogance destroyed by its own cruelty.
So the question remains, to everyone listening, if you were in that boardroom, whose side would you be on? The millionaire who mocked, or the maid who rose?